Om. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahe Tejasvinavaditamastu ma Vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we left off on verse 7 to start verse 8. And just to summarize the chapter, the yoga of the imperishable Brahman. First topic, actually 1 to 7. Whatever you pursue, you gain. So the topic is covering the transcendental and immanent nature of Brahman. And all of you know that there are many theories of creation, and some you might believe, some you might not. But the idea of these is to help you appease your mind, what you don't actually know, what you can't conceive. So if your mind's appeased, then you're able to move forward on your journey. Perhaps after you've asked certain questions, you can move forward. One of those such theories is, we say, the non-apprehension of the Brahman causes that misapprehension which projects this world. See, not knowing it was give the same example, so it kind of slowly penetrates. So not seeing the rope as a rope, you see it as a snake. Not seeing the Brahman as Brahman, you see the world. See it as a world. So we say that this world is nothing but a dream, which is part of the waker's mind. You understand that when you wake up. So whatever the facts are, whatever you believe, globally there's lots of different ideas. We exist here right now. So we've got to figure out the value set which holds our mind, to get back to our original nature. So the war of anything is never outside, it's always inside. And in chapter 8, this chapter, we posit the deity, not outside as such, but the deity we're positing as the Brahman is the Atman, Adi Atman. So if you pursue the world, you'll gain that. If you surrender your mind and intellect to that inner deity, that Atman within, and you pursue the self, whilst you're engaged in your actions, you place your mind on that ideal of the self, the Brahman, the Atman, and then you gain that self. So we're always given that choice. The last verse we did, verse 7, was indicating, if you remember me being not your ego, but me, the self, sarve kaleshu, at all times. And if you fight meaning actually act, it's not fistica fights. So if you consider your worship, your prayer, it's not as a part-time thing, it's a full-time awareness of your truth. So in the verse 7, he's positing this idea of open eye meditation, which is essential for our everyday living in our spiritual evolution, if this is what we're concerned with or interested in. So it's a constant recognition of the self. But right now we give a very high value and recognition to the world, a black market value to it. So we don't get a look in on focusing on the self, and we lose that self. So it's a constant awareness of the divinity in that diversity. So from here, from verse 8 onwards, we'll begin. But first, before we begin, let's have the question, Pavita. Before we have the question, is there any question on what's being said? Okay. Babita.
Hello, Hariom, everyone. It's a very basic question, I believe. In verse 2, in verse 2, I mean, during we've seen like every time Krishna or Arjuna, they call each other by different names. There is always a hidden meaning behind it, which actually reflects in the verse, why they're calling them by that name. So here in this one, Arjun calls Krishna as Purushottama and Madhusudana. I just wanted to know that where do these two names fit in this verse?
Anybody wants to give it a shot? Nishi.
I'll give it a go. Krishna's called Madhusudana because he killed the demon Madhu, and this highlights Krishna's role as the destroyer of evil and protector of the universe. And in chapter 2, Krishna was referred to as Madhusudana then because so he could kill the demon of doubt that had arisen in Arjun's mind about performing his duty.
Okay. Good. Anybody else? Two names there is, isn't there? Madhusudana and Purushottama. Guru.
On Purushottama Paruji, I think Purusha typically means life by itself. I think somebody who's within the physical body is supposed to be Purusha. It is not really a man as such. In Sanskrit, Purusha basically means somebody.
Human.
It's a human, somebody with life. So I think the fact that Krishna is called Purushottama basically means that he is imperishable. He's beyond the realms of physical body.
Good. Anybody else wants to add to what Nishi and Guru said? Vidya.
And it's interesting that both these words have been used in the same line. Purushottama is basically, it defines what an Uttama Purushan should be, as in the exalted version of a human being with all the grandeur of qualities. So that's a definition of the ideal man. Man here being man, woman, human being, interchangeably used. But the direct contrast is the Madhusudana, where he's slaying the demon Madhu. He's actually killing a demon, Madhu. So at a glance, one would think, you're talking about an exalted version of a human being, but on the other side, you're talking about somebody who's killed, which is kind of contrary. But it also goes to show the duality of this world, the extremes. It goes to show, when for us mere mortals, it would be that you have good and bad within us. It depends on which one you use at what time. And again, remember here he's trying to speak to Arjuna's faulted mind, where he's not wanting to act. So therefore he's saying, look, I am, you're calling me Purushottama, but I'm also the Madhusudana. I've also killed a demon. When it warrants, I've killed a demon. So therefore, you need to act when it warrants, when situation warrants, you need to exert that part of your quality as well. So it just reminds us of the dualities of the world.
Good. Thanks, Vidya. Ash, you had your hand up. Do you have anything? I can't see you now. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I think I've got a problem with my video. It just won't play.
That's all right.
Thank you. I was just going to add what they've said, actually. The only other bit to add was that they're both names of Vishnu. So he was, Krishna was deemed as an incarnation of Vishnu. Yeah, and in terms of Madhusudana, exactly the same, that I assume Arjuna is in the hope by Krishna having slayed Madhu and the demon, he would be able to slay the demons within Arjuna that have arisen, and in his despondency with the battle and what he's dealing with.
Okay, good. One more, one last one. Tim.
It's a curious reversal that often in teaching you use flattery before you criticize someone. You flatter them and then criticize them, and it's a good pedagogic approach. But here, of course, it's Arjuna talking to Krishna, and so it's odd that Krishna needs flattery.
Okay. Anybody else? Good. Abhita?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you everybody for taking time to actually reflect on it and, to find an answer for me. My understanding was, is similar. Just looking in reference to this particular verse, when it says here that it's a causal, it says it knows itself by itself, and the causal subtle body and consists of vasana and desire become extinct. So I think these are the demons we're talking about, which Krishna killed. And because he's risen above all that, he's a pure consciousness himself. And that is why he was probably referred as a Purushottama. I don't know. That's what I was thinking.
Good. Good. Thanks, Babita. Guru.
Probably it's a little funny, but then, when I look at these conversations, to me, it appears as if a sage thousands of years ago created these two characters, and there is a narrative that's being built. And I think while Arjuna seems to be calling with a specific name, it also probably is more like a backdrop for what is to come through Krishna or his teachings afterwards. So even I think the word Madhusudana, somewhere I think I tend to see it as more of Madhu being the honey. So in Sanskrit again, so Madhusudana basically means something that you are very closely associated with, something that seems to be very sweeter to you, the vasanas, right? At some point of time, Krishna is going to take you out of that vasanas. And probably that's also the reason why it's probably being referred to as Madhusudana in this context.
Okay, good. So, 2 words in this context. Arjuna is addressing Krishna, Purushottama, and Madhusudana. So, slayer of demons and best amongst men. Because he doesn't know what the self is. So he has to say it in the context of what's known. And also there is that flattery there. And flattery, why does Krishna need flattery? Actually, it's an affection. You know, we work well and best if I say to you, oh, that Babita's terrible. What a terrible question she's given. Or if I say, that's a wonderful question Babita's given. We all feel a lot better for trying to approach it. And Babita will feel a lot better. It's not Babita's question personally, it's to us all. But that relationship of exchange that is built becomes easier to digest the subtler values when there's a good rapport. So Krishna began this by calling Arjuna all different names. Arjuna is Krishna's friend. Krishna is Arjuna's friend from long ago. So they have that rapport, a good feeling. So Madhusudana, slayer of demons, you've got to get rid of your vasanas. The demons are the vasanas. And in this verse, he's asking about what's above, what's beyond our mortal selves, what's more than. How do you get rid of those vasanas? Oh, Madhusudana, it's like you've achieved that. Purushottama, best amongst men. As we're saying, Purushottama, meaning that human being which is best amongst men is that self, that effort you put in to get to the self, Purusha, that self-effort. So Krishna's that. So affectionately, he's addressing Krishna. He wants some subtle ideas out of Krishna. What's Adibhuta, Adhyatma, Adibhuta, Adidevya. He wants to know that. So he's also asking, you're the best amongst us to tell us this. Please tell us. What's the best way to get rid of, what's that yajna, sacrifice, that you get rid of your demons, your vasanas, your desires? You know, because you've done it. You get rid of your vasanas in this world. Madhusudana, it's sort of indirect, it's worldly. Purushottama indicates spiritual. So it's 2 sides of the coin. He's using 2 sides. One's directing you that way, one's to drop that, so you pitch up the higher. When you've pitched up the higher, you drop the lower. It's 2-sided. But essentially, there's a good rapport when this sort of affection is used in pronouns to indicate what you've actually got to do. He's asking such questions. Let's go. 8.
Abhyasa yoga Tena chetasa nanyagāmina paramam purusham divyam yati partanu chintayan.
Renu, if you could read the verse.
With the unswerving mind made steadfast by the practice of yoga and meditating, O Partha, one goes to the supreme, resplendent being.
So, with unswerving mind made steadfast by the practice of yoga. What are our yogas? When the mind's focused on the self. So what are our yogas? Anybody at this stage? We all must know what the 3 yogas are. How do you make your mind steadfast? Just 3 words I'm after. Guru.
Karma yoga, bhakti yoga, and jnana yoga.
Yeah, we've got to do that. That's how you make your mind steadfast. Abhyasa, yoga practice of karma, bhakti, jnana yoga. For the body, mind, and intellect leads you to that path of enlightenment. So our mind is that deadly creature. It's like the biggest virus in us. It makes us a slave. It makes us subservient. It teases us. So when you gain a recognition of what's in the world is not quite it, then you gain a perspective which enables you to have a mental capacity of a little bit of withdrawal. Meaning the withdrawal isn't that you remove yourself from the world, but you mentally focus on something bigger through your karma bhakti jnana yoga. You mentally remove yourself by pursuing your desires in that spirit of karma bhakti jnana. You gain that knowledge to rid the bulk of your desires, which gives you a bit of objectivity, and you're removing yourself by that abhyas, that practice. Gaining knowledge to back your actions, to refine your emotions. So that's when you see the limits of the world, when you recognize there's a limit. So right now, what's drawing you to that world are your desires. And one sees no limits in the world. So there's an endless pursuit of trying to acquire, to enjoy. But when you don't have those desires, you don't want the next, etc. What might the next, etc. be? You've got to think about what it is you want in your own mind, what you desire, you crave, a holiday, the item, the object, the being, the gadget, whatever it might be. You don't want it. But when you're on that path and you slightly withdraw, the first stage through your karma bhakti jnana, we call that stage uparati. It's a withdrawal, mental withdrawal. So you could be going through the best or the worst of things. You have an objective perspective, a disinterested interest. Uparati. It's a stage of a spiritual path beginning. Objectivity. So say you were going on your vacation. Many of us go on vacation because we're trying to get away from something. But say when you take that stance, vacation or holiday originally was that one had no time when you were engaged in the world of acquisition and enjoyment. One had no time. So you took yourself away from those things to focus your mind on holy days, holiday. Now it's quite the opposite. There's nothing holy about most people's holidays. So is all involvement and indulgence. So if it's involvement and indulgence, that's not your sadhana. But if you're taking out time to pursue that sadhana, that mental distance from those desires which harass you, and you offload the bulk through your karma bhakti jnana, that's the first stage, that's uparati. So you don't need to physically do that, but initially you may need to do it physically, just like you go to school. Once you've your education, but once you've learned that vocation proficiently, the facts and the figures and the practice, you can then mentally, you don't need to keep reading the books as such or going through the motions. You mentally have it in the back of your mind. So the first stage is uparati. Plants can't do that, animals can't do that. Human beings can. Plants only interested in plant world. Animals get involved in, they've got the capacity, they see another dog. You know, I walk here where I live in the mornings or whenever, and there's lots of dog walkers. And as soon as one dog sees another dog, they all rush towards each other. They're all rolling around, they're all on top of each other. See another dog, they haven't seen, and they've only seen humans, and then they see another same species, they get all excited. So a dog can do that. The dog can't decide when it goes for a walk, the human decides for it. The humans have a capacity to have a disinterested interest in everything. The dog's just total emotional wreck. The plants can't go anywhere, it has to stay in the same place. So essentially, when one gets that stage of uparati, that withdrawal, it's a state of objectivity. And your activities are with a higher ideal. So with regards to your emotion, you're not passionately involved, but you have a dispassionate passion. There's an objectivity, there's a deep feeling and an objectivity in your pursuit, an intuitive pursuit. In terms of karma, it's service and sacrifice. You serve others, not yourself. And bhakti, there's an acute awareness of a blessing of the divinity that you don't know. So when we do that, we gain that capacity of our spiritual evolution, that grounding. You can't expect anybody else to change and have that. It's your relationship with your world, not what others should have. So initially, when you get into this state, it's difficult to relate back in your world, but later you understand things just as they are, not what you would like them to be. So once you get on the spiritual path, you can't get back to the mundane. So that next stage from there is dharana. Dharana is having that concentration. So it's a concentration on the higher whilst you act in your world or whatever you do. There's a quietude of mind. When the mind is going everywhere, like your mind in this field can be going everywhere. You can be an absolute spiritual tourist. You know that something inside of you wants to pursue the higher. You know that you want that peace of mind. You know you're after something. There's a thirst. There's a mumuksha. But if you go everywhere, you never give yourself the opportunity to get past 2 + 2. Because everywhere you're going, you're seeing 2 + 2 matching up. It satiates your mind. It fixes it. It appeases your mind. But you don't go beyond 2 + 2. Kindergarten mathematics. You don't go beyond that logic. So to actually push yourself beyond, you've really got to keep with whatever it is, keep with building yourself with a structure. And then when you know all of that, then you can go off because it'll all be the same. But until then, even that, a spiritual tourist can be such. you could be a tourist in anything. But even in this subject, it's very subtle when that happens. You don't realize where you're getting hooked on different things, but it's actually stunting your growth. So you're just trying to appease your mind. That's still at the very basic stage. So step it up. It's just a tip there. Not everybody can recognize that. So when the mind's concentrated, you focus on an activity which is directed to your higher ideal. And once you refine that, you get the dhyana, meditation, where you've got very few desires left to overcome in the world. People believe generally that meditation is there to calm your mind so you can deal with the world. But throughout the scriptures here, we're proposing that meditation is there not to calm your mind. You've got to have a calm mind to get into meditation. It's upside down at the moment, generally the world over. And you can't convince anybody about that. So it's like getting into a trance when people get into that sort of meditation. You go into a rapture, you feel that calm instantly. That's why people maintain doing it. But it's spiritually not a great use of time. It's an impediment to your growth. It's like an alcoholic constantly thinks on alcohol. There's no wavering of mind because that's a desire that they want to fix. If you are in love with a person and you keep thinking of them, that's not meditation, but your mind is focused there. So it's a mind game. It's not thought to take you out of this world. It's a mind game. It's focusing the mind on something which doesn't raise you spiritually. It just gets you into something which is very worldly. Whatever the mantra is, could be alcohol, could be somebody you love, could be something. If your mind's not calmed with very few desires, it's counterproductive. So meditation holds the mind to the exclusion of all thoughts. So it's just there to note. So he says here, make your practice unswerving by karma, bhakti, and jnana yoga. First, make it unswerving. Don't neglect karma, bhakti, jnana yoga. Don't jump to meditation. So meditation is always preceded by the preparation. In fact, anything which is got that subtlety in life is preceded by your preparation. So you can't, if one's smart, one will think about it. If one's going with the fad and fashion, you just get into it. It's up to you. Let's read the verse.
The second, the second topic, covering verses 8 to 14, explains how one can reach Brahman through ever steadfast yoga and meditation. Meditation functions as the final gateway to self-realization, the highest spiritual practice. It requires certain premeditative preparation. Your mind must be calm and steadfast to meditate effectively. To plunge your mind into meditation without adequate preparation will prove not only futile, but also detrimental to you. The success in meditation, therefore, rests mainly upon your mind's initial preparation. Your mind must be free from all clingings and cravings for the objects of the world. Desires and attachments disturb the mind, render it unsteady. An unsteady mind cannot concentrate or meditate. Practice of yoga at the 3 levels of your personality rids your mind of desires and attachments. You practice karma yoga with your body, bhakti yoga with your mind, jnana yoga with your intellect. The yogas keep the mind steady on the path to realization. It no longer wavers and vacillates. Such a mind qualifies for single-pointed meditation upon the self.
So what is the in the paragraph? What must your mind be before you meditate? What's it suggesting? Tim.
That you've exhausted your vasanas.
To that effect. And how can you tell that? How will you know that?
There's no agitation. You're at peace and calm in situations.
So peace, calm, no agitation. What else? Vidya?
When the world no longer interests you.
So no longer interests you. What else?
I think, you're not even thinking about it. you don't even think that I've got rid of it.
Because
it's like detox.
detox. So you don't think about health when you're healthy. You think about health when you're not healthy. What else? What does it say here? So no cravings, no feeling of that push of those desires. You know certain things you've got to do, you do them in your obligations. Just do them, that's got to be done, whatever it is. But there's not that agitation, feeling, that push. When you, very simply, look at it at the very gross level, when you've got sufficient funds in your pocket to do whatever you want. You don't think about funds. When you're physically healthy and fit, you don't think about, you just do the things you need to do with that fitness. When you're emotionally thinking in a refined manner, you think of the other before yourself. That feeling, you have that understanding, that thought of something bigger. You know that in yourself. That's the way. So that's gone. That's gone of that craving of me first or mine first. Mine's calm. Let's read the next.
Meditation is the art of maintaining the mind in sharp focus upon the chosen thought to the exclusion of all other thoughts. In the seat of meditation, the mind chants the mantra, word symbol. Your intellect observes, witnesses the chant. But even a prepared mind slips into other thoughts during the chant. The intellect should then pull the mind back to the chosen line of thought. This is known as abhyasa yoga, the practice of uniting the mind with the self. If your mind had not been purified through the yogas, it will constantly slip from the mantra. Your intellect will then find it impossible to hold such a mind in single focus. But a well-prepared mind can sustain meditation. Through constant meditation alone, you will reach the ultimate state of enlightenment, a state of supreme resplendence. The enlightened soul revels in absolute knowledge and bliss.
So a prepared mind. There's no irritation doing this. It's quite the opposite. Has anybody heard of doing meditation when everybody's stressed? Recommendation. Has everybody heard that? Generally, it's the fashion. It's even brought into schools to calm the children down, or calm in corporate bodies, to get everybody to focus, to be calm, quiet their minds. All stressed out, all burnt out. Let's do meditation. It's not about that. It's quite the opposite. So easy to teach. It's not about that though. No practice. If you want to be not stressed out, serve people. That's your starting point. If you want to avoid burnout, serve people, serve others, serve a higher idea. That will keep your mind quiet. You're serving yourself, that's it. You're never going to be stopping that stress. So preparation first, not after the event. Tim.
Can I just clarify? Vidya helpfully said it's a state when you're not interested in the world. That puzzles me. Is it that you're not interested or you're not distracted by the world? Can you not still be interested in the world?
So you have your vocations, your prarabdha vasana, those won't go till death. You have to do things with your body, mind, and intellect in the world, but you have an objective stance. You have an understanding the world is limited in what it can offer. So you see it for what it is. So you do what you ought to do with the optimum passion, but not that passion which spoils the activity, but there's objectivity in it. So the focus is on something higher always. It's not to get it out of the world. It's actually just to do the sadhana, exhaust whatever's left of your vasana. So it's a disinterested interest. So it's an objectivity. One performs best when one's objective to one's activity, when one gets involved and has an interest in it of one's own self. You lose the perspective of what you're supposed to be doing, and it impoverishes that activity. So the disinterested interest, it's not personal, it's objective. So you can optimize on what you have to do because your thoughts are on something higher. So your thoughts are not, it's not dismissive of the world of where you need to be in it, but you don't get hung up by it. You understand the whole scheme and you fit in and play your part, that's all. You're not hung up by it. So there's disaster somewhere, you're not hung up by it, you know there's a cause and effect behind it. If you have a disaster, you know there's a cause and effect behind it, right? How do we work best on it? Let's move forward with what we understand, put in the efforts to maneuver it from a negative effect to nullify it to a neutral state, to make it positive. Put in the cause and effect. You're not attached to something negative or positive. You just understand it, move through it. Disinterested interest. There's a harmony in it. And it fuels you with energy to do whatever you need to do. So it's not that you're in the world, your body, mind, and intellect's in the world, you can't get out of it. But your mental state is not affected by that world. its thoughts are resting on something which is not worldly. That makes sense. Let's read the next.
Kavim Puranam Manushasitaram Anoraniyam Samanasmaretya Sarvasya Tataram Achintya Rupam Aditya Varnam Tamasa Prasattat.
Guru, if you could read the verse.
Verse 9. He who meditates on the omniscient, ancient, all-ruler, minuter than the minute, supporter of all, of inconceivable form, effulgent as the sun, beyond darkness.
Mm-hmm. So here he's giving, when you're prepared for meditation, what is your focus on? What's your understanding? So you're prepared through the practice of your karma bhakti jnana yoga. So your concern is to meditate on that Brahman. You don't know what that Brahman is. So here it gives grand insight or attributes. And that's how we can move from what we know to something that we don't know. From the known, education always goes from the known leads us to the unknown. But we can't go to unknown because we don't know what that is. So it's helpful to lead ourselves. So the first, he starts with Kavyam, omniscient, all-knowing consciousness. Actually, Kavir is a poet. It's used as sort of a flowery language to mean an enlightened one. Purana, before time. So this Brahman, this self, is before time. Our construct in this world is made up of time, space, causation. That makes our universe. So it's saying here, Purana, before time. In fact, they often use one, but they mean the whole lot. So before the first experience. So time is a measurement of, you need 2 points to measure that distance of an experience. So that measurement of time. So you have a series of experiences in a day, in a week, in the year, etc. So it's beyond that experience, second experience. It's the first experience. Hence, the joke is the second is our measurement of time, because Brahman was at the first experience, first aspect, before time. So even the solidarity of that time, if we are here, we don't notice time go by in our everyday. But if we go away for a week and we have a different experience, we break that solidarity and it seems as though there's a different power to that time. The amount you compact in terms of your experience, maybe hundreds of times more than you would in 1 week in a everyday scenario. So your experiences vary. So that solidarity of time, measurement between two experiences, that consciousness is before all of that time. The first experience. And then time was born at the second. Ancient Purana, before time. You have to just sit with it for a moment. Can you conceive before time? Because everything we do is in time. Anurashritam, the ruler of the world. Ruler of the world means all the lawgivers. There's nothing, the lawgiver is, there's nothing in the construct of what we know. There's laws and laws and laws of this whole universe. We have physical laws, we have chemical laws, we have psychological laws, we have electrical laws, we have magnetic laws, we have gravitational laws, we have all sorts of laws which make up our construct, which we can't get out of. And then we have our own man-made thinking laws, which are relatively relative. In fact, I do recall teaching in the environment of the law. And it's very interesting sometimes when you talk to people who are dealing with the law, that their construct is within man-made laws of goods and bads, do's and don'ts. That the law of the scriptures are beyond goods and bads, do's and don'ts. They're in obligations which go far beyond that, towards something out of this world. A different sort of value system. So there's laws which we can't change. We can't change water, the law of what makes water. What makes water? Anybody? What is water constituted of?
Hydrogen and oxygen.
Yeah. So you couldn't call it water if it was made out of oxygen and gold. So you might think it'd be interesting, but it wouldn't be any use to us. And without this construct of water, there's no life. We need water to keep ourselves going. That law of causation. So it's beyond, it's ancient, it's beyond man-made laws, it's beyond time. Minuter than the minute. The tiniest particle, you know, in science, we try to discover what the atom, what's smaller than the atom. It must be in that self, that God must be in that tube, test tube. It's beyond that. You can't measure it in a man-made environment, in this time, space, or causation. It's a supporter of all. Just as the sun supports the earth and the universe. Just as gold supports ornaments, just as cotton supports all garments, just as the ocean supports all waves. The supreme consciousness supports everything. It's trying to give us a picture of something outside of the construct of our universe, which we can't conceive our planet, the remaking of that. Never mind the universe, solar system. Never mind outside of that. It's saying it's beyond that. So he's giving us attributes from here on, from this chapter, chapter 9, 10. There's many, many attributes. Why? Because we can't hold it in our minds too long. So we're given something to latch onto, to project ourselves beyond our small-minded pairs of opposites that we get involved in. Inconceivable. So God is not an object of perception, emotion, comprehension. Effulgent as the sun. You need the sun, as we were saying, to illuminate the world. You need the consciousness to illuminate the physical, emotional, and intellectual. It's beyond the opposites. So all the consciousness we know are conditioned consciousness. When we ask ourselves, if you're conscious, you always have of what are you conscious of? So I'm conscious of sound, I'm conscious of seeing you, I'm conscious of smell, taste, etc. So this consciousness is effulgent. Let's read a little bit. Actually, we will stop here. We'll recap this next time. I think we were going to have a few weeks break in this class. Is that right? Okay. So we'll be starting, I think, first week in September or something like that. Is it right? We'll come back. We'll write a note to you. In the meanwhile, anybody would like to come forward to help with some karma, please do. We have lots of it. So please let us know. If you have any special skills that you can contribute, we've got many jobs too. Sam, Tim are dealing with karma. Dharma has been dealing with karma as well. Ashnishi, actually many of you are doing karma, so let's come together and make it function well. Okay, Hari Om.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.